How's it going, everybody? Welcome to today's stick mobility class. I am Coach Ray, and as usual, thank you for joining me for today's class. So for today's class, we are going to need access to 2 long sticks. You'll also notice that I have 3 kettlebells behind me. 2 of them are the same weight. One is a heavier kettlebell, and I also have a bench and a pad for us to kneel on. So for today's class, I actually want to keep it all lower body focused, and it's going to be mostly focused on that posterior chain. So we're going to be doing a lot of work with the hamstrings, a lot of work with the glutes. So for our glute work, we are going to be getting into some kettlebell swings. For the hamstring and glute work, we're going to be getting into RDL, and we're going to be using the bench as a way to access the hamstrings and the glutes there. But to go through our warm-up, we're actually going to be mostly focusing on feet, hips, and spine today. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with both sticks here. I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to take a stance roughly about a little wider than shoulder width here. I'm going to have both sticks in line with my toes, and my hands are roughly about shoulder height. I'm going to sink down a little bit into a horse stance, and I'm going to bring both heels up nice and high. And I want to keep all 5 toes in contact with the floor. I'm going to bring them down slowly. Good, and then back up. Good, breathe. That's 2. Up. 3. Good. Up. 4. Go again. Up. 5. Let's go one more. And up. 6. Both heels down nice and slow, and ease off. Now we're going to go through pelvic tilts here. Hands are at the same height. Feet are the same width. I'm going to drive the sticks down 20%. I'm going to sink down a little bit again into that horse stance. We're going to start off with posterior tilt, so I'm going to tuck my pelvis in, squeeze my glutes. If my hips were a bucket, I'm trying to tip water out the back. Then I'm going to go anterior, so I'm going to tilt my pelvis the opposite way, as if I'm trying to tilt water out the front. Posterior tilt, squeeze those glutes, drive those knees apart, driving the sticks down 20%, anterior tilt. Good, posterior tilt, anterior tilt, posterior tilt, anterior tilt, and posterior tilt. Hold that position. Now we're going to do hip bumps. So I'm going to bump my hip up to the left. So left hip bumps up, right hip drops, then bump to the right. Right glute should be firing here. Left, right, left, right, left, and right. Back to center and ease off. Now we're going to take the pad for us to kneel on here. We're just going to focus on stretching out those hip flexors first, and we're also going to really focus on the stretching through activating that glute. So if I'm stretching out left hip flexor, I want to make sure that I'm contracting that left glute to really lock in that hip extension here. So I'm going to go down to the floor, and I'm going to have my ankle dorsiflex here. So I'm not going to plantar flex and have it extended. I want to keep it dorsiflex. I want to drive that big toe into the floor here. Now with both hands straight out, bottom of the sticks are in line with my toes here. I'm going to drive my back foot down, tuck my pelvis, and squeeze my right glute here. So my right knee's down. Now I'm going to drive the sticks down so I get full activation in the core or all the anterior tissues. And I'm going to shift forward, squeezing my glute real hard, and then come back in, still squeezing. Shift in. That's 2. Shift forward. 3. So creating that tension about 30%. 4. Shift forward. 5. 3 more. Shift forward. 6. 2 more. Shift forward. 7. Last one. Shift forward. 8. Ease off. Take a second. Now we're going to switch sides. So left knee down, right leg forward. Same thing. Dorsiflexing that back ankle, driving the big toe into the floor here. Hands are still at the same height. Drive that back foot down, tuck your pelvis, squeeze your left glute, drive the sticks down and then shift forward. 1, 2, try to actively split those hips. 3, 4, 5. So drive those sticks down. 6, 2 more. 7, last one. 8. Excellent, good. We're gonna keep the pad. I'm actually gonna adjust here a little bit. Gonna stretch those adductors out a little bit here. Now I'm gonna have that outside foot pointed forward. So I don't actually wanna go with the angled out position. I actually wanna try to have my toes pointed forward the best that I can here. Now it's gonna get some internal rotation on that hip. And if you start to get a little cramping, don't be afraid to come out of it. But I wanna try to keep that left leg straight. Those sticks are on my shoulders, angled out in front because we are gonna hinge into it. My back foot or my right foot is gonna be plantar flexed here. So I'm going to sink my hips back, reach down. Should be getting a stretch in that left adductor here. I'm gonna bring my hips forward, then sink back. Make sure you're breathing here, reaching forward. Bring hips forward one more time, and then shift back. Excellent. I'm gonna walk my hands up the sticks, slowly come up. Excellent, now I'm gonna switch sides. So slowly come out of that. And I'm actually gonna turn to the side for this one. So now my right foot's gonna be out. And again, I want that foot to be pointed forward as best as I can. So from here, right leg is straight. I'm gonna sink my hips back, reach down. Breathe. Shift forward, back. Good, shift forward, and back one more time. Excellent, walk those hands up, come up, wiggle that foot in, and now we're gonna go to a standing position. So we're gonna kick the pad over to the side here. And what I wanna focus on first is, I wanna focus on hip abduction. So I really wanna get those lateral glutes warmed up here. So we're gonna spend quite a bit of time there working with the hip abduction, but we're also gonna be working on externally rotating the hip, right? So I'm gonna take a feet together stance, toes are pointed forward. I'm gonna have the bottom of the sticks angled in towards me a bit. Now the distance is gonna depend on your mobility and whatever feels most comfortable for you. If you're starting to get pain, that's when you adjust the distance of the sticks here. And you can always adjust the distance of the sticks as we go along. But you wanna start about maybe roughly a foot to a foot and a half outside of your foot, outside of midfoot here. And I got both hands out. I'm gonna drive both sticks down about 30% tension here. So you should be feeling those lateral tissues turn on. Now from this position, I'm gonna keep my right foot down. I'm gonna hover my left foot. I'm gonna bring it over to the stick and drive that foot against the stick here. You should be feeling the lateral hip tissues turn on, and you're pushing with the same intensity. So 30% tension. We're gonna do a long duration hold, and I'm gonna externally rotate. I'm gonna rotate my left hip outwards, and notice my foot ends up in front of the stick, but I'm pushing back, right? So now I'm getting that extension. I'm gonna rotate that hip back forward, back in, and ease off. Now we're gonna switch over to the other side. Drop both sticks down, hover the right foot, bring it to the right stick and push. Again, 30% tension. Excellent. We're going to externally rotate that hip. push. Good, rotate it back forward, back in, ease off. Wonderful. We're gonna go back over to the other side. So let's go ahead and move the sticks out a couple inches, if you can manage, right? Drop both sticks down, 30%, hover the left foot, bring it to the left stick and push. Good, keep pushing, rotate that hip. When I say rotate at the hip, I mean rotate at the hip joint, right? Not the knee. Good, back forward, and in, ease off. Good. Drop both sticks down, over the right foot, bring it over to the right stick, push. Breathe, externally rotate. 3, 2, 1, back forward, back in, and ease off. Now we're actually gonna bring the sticks out even further, right? Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do 5 taps, right? So we're gonna go 5 taps on this side, hold on that 5th, externally rotate, bring it back forward 3 times, and then bring that leg back in, right? So I'm gonna drive both sticks down, same thing, 30%, push, hover the left leg, bring it to the left stick, push. Good, that's 1, out, tap, that's 2, out, tap, 3, out, tap, 4, one more time, out, hold, externally rotate the hip, back forward, that's 1, rotate out, 2, good, rotate out, 3, bring it back in, and ease off. Excellent, good. Now we're gonna switch over to the other side. We're gonna drive both sticks down, over the right foot, bring it over, tap, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, hold, push, externally rotate, 1, 2, rotate, 3, back in, and ease off. Excellent, good. Glutes, lateral hips should be pretty warmed up here. Let's go ahead and get into the spine work. So we're gonna start off with that T-spine extension. So I'm gonna go with a roughly hip width stance, toes are forward, bottom of the 6 are angled in a bit. Hands are roughly about shoulder height. Drive those sticks down lightly, about 10 to 20%. Then I'm gonna drive my hips back and reach out. Trying to create as long of a spine as we can here. Back up. Excellent, let's go again. Hands out, hips back. Breathe. Back up. One more time. Hands out, hips back. Good. Come back up and ease off. Excellent. We're going to place one stick down. We're going to work on rotation here. Now, as we do this, I do want you to focus on creating a little bit of force driving the stick into the ground. Typically when we do this, we don't really drive force going downwards, but for this particular drill, I do actually want you to, or this time for doing this drill. Now I'm gonna have my left foot forward, right foot's gonna be back. You can take a big split, or you can go with a semi-narrow split, but you don't wanna be here, right? Not for this drill. You actually wanna create some distance between the feet, so think of a wide base, almost like an athletic base here. I'm gonna go with the stick in my left hand here. It's gonna go around my left thigh and around the bottom, my right foot here, right? So rule of thumb, stick should be going on the outside of both legs here, right, to make sure that the stick doesn't slip. Now from this position, I'm gonna load that front leg a bit, right? So you see that this knee is bent, and I'm also going to use that as a way to create tension, so I'm going to abduct that hip. I'm going to drive that leg into the stick here. I'm going to reach across with my right hand, all right? So this is going to be that first position. What I'm going to do from here is I'm going to pull back and drive the stick down into the floor about 20%, just light, nothing too significant. So you should be feeling some activation in the core, a little bit in the lat. I'm going to let go with my left hand, and I'm going to reach and rotate back, and I'm pulling with my right hand here. The right elbow can be bent, it doesn't need to be straight. I'm going to come back forward. I'm going to do 2 more rotations. Make sure you're still actively driving that left leg into the stick. Back forward. 1 more time. Breathe. Excellent. Come back forward and ease off. Now we're going to switch sides here. Now, a tip or something I want you to think about is as you're breathing through this exercise, you want to make sure you're getting good diaphragmatic breathing. So you should be feeling that rib cage expand 360 degrees when you breathe in, and exhaling all inwards as you breathe out. So I'm going to bring the stick on the outside of that right leg, outside of the left foot. And I'm going to do that same thing. I'm going to load that front leg a bit here. Abduct the hips, so drive that leg into the stick. Reach across with my left hand. I'm going to pull back a bit and drive the stick down. I'm going to take my right hand off. I'm going to reach back. Good. Back forward. Reach back. Good. Let's go one more time here, folks. Excellent. Come back forward and ease off. Now to warm up the core, get the core set. To learn how to stabilize this, we're going to go into a hip hinge, a loaded hip hinge position. We are going to be doing a dead bug. The dead bug is just meant to get some core activation. So we don't need to press super hard. We're going to be at about roughly 40 to 50%. Our main focus here is keeping structural integrity in the core in the back, meaning you don't want that low back to come off the floor. You want to keep that low back flat to the floor, as if it's a marshmallow under your back and you're trying to smash that thing down as flat as you can. So I'm going to go to the floor here. I'm going to take 1 stick. It's going to be 1 stick here. Wide grip, however wide you'd like. I want to keep the stick at roughly over my hip, directly over my hip here. You can have it lower, but it's not going to be to the same effect. So I want to keep it right above the hip. I'm going to bring my knees up to meet the stick. That's first part. Now from here, I'm going to again compress at 50%. So I'm driving my knees up and pushing my hands down. 50% compression. And now from here, I'm going to extend my left leg out. So driving my right leg into the stick. Back in and then switch. Breathe out as you go, extend. That's 1. Back in, that's 2. Extend the left. It's 3. And ease off. Excellent, good. So you should, as you do this, be feeling that lower abdomen working. If you're not getting a lower abdomen working, or you're disconnected from the upper abdomen, you're not keeping the alignment in the rib cage. All right, folks, so now we're gonna get into the fun stuff. All right, so now we're gonna get into our fun stuff. We're gonna get into the RDL first. And so for this, we really wanna make sure that the movement is coming from the hips. What that means is that as we're actually going to initiate the movement, we wanna think about our hips being the primary movers as we actually go into that hinging motion. If you start to mostly bend forward, that's where you start to get into that low back or lumbar region. So we want to try to keep our movement out of that as much as we possibly can and just focus on getting hip hinging specifically. So I'm going to take both kettlebells here and we're going to do 10 reps. We're going to focus on control, keeping good control, keeping good tension in those hamstrings. Now I'm going to start with my foot stance is actually going to be a little, roughly somewhere between shoulder to hip width, but depending on you, you can go hip width if that's more comfortable for you, or you can go more shoulder width. It all varies. For this particular drill, I like to keep my toes pointed forward. Now from here, I'm going to hinge my hips back. Soft bend to the knees, so all that load is actually on the hamstring here. I'm gonna go down to retrieve the kettlebells, keep my core engaged, and then I'm gonna come up, squeezing those glutes. 1, hips back, up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 2 more, 11, last one, 12. Excellent. Ease off, take a minute. Now, you can keep the kettlebells in front or you can keep them to the side, whatever's most comfortable. Sometimes for this, I like to keep them in front just so it's more front loaded as opposed to being to the side. But again, this is going to completely mostly depend on what feels most comfortable for you. So if you're finding that you don't feel safe having it in front, move them out to the side. It's going to be effectively the same. The only difference is that the load's more so going over your midfoot a little bit more, but let's work with that. Now we're going to go back to it again. Take a second. Again, figure out whatever foot stance is most comfortable for you, what connects you to your hamstrings as much as possible. So same thing, we're going to hinge back, right? Soft bend to the knees. Make sure you got good posture here. Core engaged. Up. It's 1. Up. 2. Up. 3. Up. 4. Up. 5. Up. 6. Up. 7. Up. 8. Up. 9. 3 more. Nice and slow. 10. 2 more. 11. Last one. 12. Good. Set them down. Take a second. Got one more set. So, when it comes to how you perform your RDLs, you can actually change it a couple different ways. If you have a little bit more knee bend, you're able to actually access the glutes a little bit more. You take some of that stress off the hamstrings. If you have less knee bend, you actually access the hamstrings more in the movement. So there's 2 or more different ways that you can actually do an RDL. But for a standard hamstring specific RDL, this is going to be the best way to go. Keeping a soft knee, but not fully locked out, not really bent that much, but just keeping it soft, right? The more you start to bend at the knee, again, the less you take away from that hamstring engagement. Let's go one more time here. 12 reps. Keep it slow and controlled. Keep everything nice and tight, especially that core. Keep your core as tight as you possibly can here. So hinge, pick up the kettlebells. Keep your entire foot flat, driving that big toe into the floor. Up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, one more time, 12. Excellent. Place these down. Now is where we're going to grab our heavier kettlebell. We're going to get into kettlebell swings. So when it comes to swings, mechanics are almost pretty much the same for an RDL. You still don't want to have too much knee bend because it is a hinge, not a squat. If your kettlebell swings look more like a squat, keep your hips up higher. Your hips are going back. They're not going back and down. It's just straight back. Keep your core engaged as you do the swings, and all the movement, again, I can't emphasize this enough, coming from the hips. So when you go through and you hit that hip extension, that is based on how hard and how fast you get your glutes to contract, or you transition from a hinge to an extension or flexion to extension position. And your arms are not doing the work. We're not doing an American kettlebell swing where we actually actively bring up the kettlebell. This is just a regular swing where the height of the kettlebell or how high it's moving up, that is going to be dictated by how hard and how fast you are swinging, not by how high you pull it into the air with the shoulders. So the shoulders should effectively be relatively relaxed. So I'm going to take this heavier kettlebell here. Now for me, I like to start out a little away from the kettlebell because I want to pull it into position and then initiate the swing from there. Some people like to start with it under, pick up, and then start to swing. I personally feel like stepping back from the kettlebell is a little bit more of an efficient way to already get primed and ready for that movement, especially since you could set up from the beginning. Now from here, I have a pretty relatively wide stance, and I'll actually show this from the front first. My stance is roughly about hit my shoulder width, slight bit wider. It depends on you. If you want to go with a little bit of a wider stance, you can. There's nothing wrong with it. You don't want to go with too narrow because you need to create space between the hips to get that kettlebell through. Sometimes if you're too narrow, you don't have that space. Let's get into it. So I'm going to grab the kettlebell double overhand grip. Okay, I'm going to straighten out my back. So I'm going to pull my shoulders down a little bit, get the lats engaged, core tight. So my hips are up high. I'm going to pull in, squeeze my glutes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And then return back down to the starting position. So again, we're focusing on keeping good structural integrity, keeping good spinal position, focusing on hip extension once it gets to that back position, and keeping that movement as consistent and as smooth as possible, right? This is a hinge, not a squat. So if you're having a hard time and your knees are bending a lot, then don't bend your knees as much, keep your hips higher, drive your hips back, squeeze those glutes at the top here, right? We're gonna go another set of 15. So same thing, gonna show from the side this time. Get set up in that same position here. Hinge back to reach down, grab the kettlebell, pull those shoulders down, activate those lats a bit, and then pull, squeeze. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Good. Step back down, ease off. Take a second. We're gonna get one more set. This is gonna last one more set of 15. Again, trying to work on getting a little better, a little more explosive. It should feel like you're maximally getting your glutes to contract as hard as you can. And you're gonna naturally get some external hip rotation. That's normal when you squeeze your glutes. If you stand upright with your toes pointed forward and you squeeze your glutes, your hips are gonna naturally turn out. Don't change your foot position based on that. Your foot position is still the same. We're just creating a little bit more torque in the hip to when we get that explosiveness. Let's go one more time, folks. Set up in that same position here. Hinge back, reach out, pull the shoulders down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Good. Down. And that is the 3 sets of that. Now, for the hamstring exercise, the last hamstring exercise we're going to get into, only going to do 2 sets. Now, for this particular drill, it's going to require very specific positioning of your foot. You need to keep your ankle dorsiflexed, right? Trying to get your toes towards your shin as much as you can so we can create more length with lengthening on that posterior side. Our leg's going to be on a bench here. I'm going to set this up, pull back a little bit, and we're going to be on the ground. We're going to go both legs here. Now, what I want you to think about as we do this exercise, treat this as if it's a leg curl, right? When you're doing a leg curl, you're pulling that heel in towards your glute. We're effectively doing that same thing. The only difference is we're actually have our feet on a bench and we're curling our hips up towards the ceiling. So I'm gonna scoot down towards the bench a bit, and I have my heels on the bench. Again, ankles are dorsiflexed. You can have your hands on the floor or across your chest, whatever's most comfortable for you. Now positioning, posterior tilt. So posteriorly tilt your pelvis, low back should be flat to the floor, core should be engaged. We're just gonna do 8 reps here. So from this position, I'm gonna actively try to flex my knees. So I'm gonna actively try to pull my heels to my butt. You should be getting some engagement in the hamstrings. Now we're gonna pull and bridge up. It's 1, back down, up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Back down, ease off. Excellent, good. So you should be feeling the hamstrings. You could be feeling the glutes as well, depending on, for 1, what's weaker, for 2, if you have really good glute connection. But you should be feeling a little bit of those glutes as well, because you need to keep those hips almost an extension a little bit, right? Especially at the top. So let's go again, 1 last set. Dorsiflex, drive the heels, so pull those heels towards your glutes. And then from here, same thing, drive up, 1, up, 2, up, 3, up, 4, up, 5, up, 6, 2 more, up, 7, last 1, up, 8. Excellent, good. That is it for the strength training. All right, folks, so now we're gonna start our cool down. So we're first gonna start off with the hamstring reach with the sticks. We just worked those hamstrings. They're probably gonna feel a little tight, a little sore, but let's go ahead and get into stretching those out first. I'm gonna take a feet together stance. I'm gonna have both sticks angled out in front relatively far, and I have both sticks laying on my shoulders here, forward chest. Now from here, I'm gonna bring my right foot forward, and I only have my heel like barely in front of the line of my toes of my left foot here, and I wanna keep that right ankle dorsiflexed. Now from here, I'm gonna lightly drive my right heel into the floor while keeping my right knee bent. You should be getting a little bit of hamstring activation. I'm going to hinge down, drive my hips back, reaching down with my hands. I'm gonna hold this position here. Should feel pretty good on the hamstring. Breathe. And we're only driving that foot into the floor, that heel into the floor, about 10%. It's really, really light. Now I'm gonna start to externally and internally rotate my right hip. So I'm gonna externally rotate or rotate my hip away from my center line, and then I'm gonna internally rotate it towards my center line. Externally rotate, internally rotate, externally rotate, and internally rotate. Back to center, come up nice and slow, ease off. Now we're gonna switch sides. So now left foot, be forward, slide into that knee. Again, lightly driving that left heel into the floor, 10%. I'm gonna hinge, reaching down towards the bottom here. And hang out in this position for a second. Excellent, now we're gonna externally rotate, then internally rotate. External, internal, external, and internal. Back to center, come up nice and slow, ease off. Excellent. We're gonna place one stick down, and we're still gonna work with stretching out those hamstrings. Now for this, you can have a box that's higher, like a 24, 30-inch box, 20-inch box. You can always have your foot up higher to get a little bit more of a stretch in that hamstring. However, for simplicity, I'm going to use the bench here. I'm going to have my right foot on the bench, and I'm going to have this ankle, again, dorsiflexed, and slight bend to my right knee. Now I could play around with the distance a little bit of how far out are you, but you want to make sure that your heel is securely on whatever platform you're using. I'm going to have the stick right in line with my right knee here, so roughly where that distance is. I'm going to have my right hand effectively above my leg or above my knee. Left hand comes up over the top, thumb facing down, very similar to a bow and arrow. I'm going to drive my right hand out and down towards my right foot. Gonna hold, should be getting a nice stretch in that right hamstring here. I'm gonna ease off, nice and slow. Rotate the stick. Gonna go again. Go out and down. 3, 2, 1, excellent, and ease off. Good. Now we're going to switch sides. So now left foot's on the bench. Again, dorsiflexing that ankle. Stick is lined up with that knee. Right hand up over the top, thumb facing down. Extend those hands out. Breathe. Slowly ease off. Excellent. Rotate the stick a bit. Right hand up over the top, thumb facing down. And drive those hands out. Breathe. 3, 2, 1. Excellent. And ease off. Wonderful. We're going to pick up the second stick. We're going to get into a standing straddle stretch. So this is to stretch out. Going to get the hamstrings, but we're also looking to stretch those adductors. So if you're not really comfortable getting up and off the floor, getting down off the floor. This is another way to manage a stretch here. So I'm gonna take a relatively wide stance, or wide stance is whatever's most comfortable for you. Again, you wanna make sure those toes are pointed forward as much as you can. If you have a slight toe out angle, that is totally okay. All right. I'm gonna have the bottom of the sticks angled out in front. Again, the sticks are actually on my shoulders, very reminiscent of that hamstring stretch we did. I'm gonna have my hands on top of the sticks here, and I do wanna try to keep both legs straight, so I wanna try to lock my knees out here. Now I'm going to reach down towards the bottom of the sticks, sink my hips back. Want to try to get as low as I can. Now as you're down here, again, you're going to get a stretch in the hamstrings, but you should be feeling those adductors as well. Bring your hips forward. If you'd like, you can wiggle your feet out a little wider and sink back into it. Breathe. Bring those hips forward. Ease off that tension for a sec, and then back into it one more time. Excellent. Bring your hands up the stick. Slowly come up to the top. Wiggle those feet in. Excellent. And good. And that concludes today's stick mobility class. Thank you for joining me today, everybody. Hope everybody had a good class. Just wanted to really focus on hips, working on hamstrings and posterior chain, such as the glutes. And just wanted to kind of keep it a little bit on the funner side, a little bit more challenging on the weight side. So hope everybody had a good class, and I'll be sure to catch you all next time. As usual, have a good one and stay safe.